Learn more about Children International and join us in our life-changing work at children.org today. Together, we can help end poverty for good.
Moonstone Minneapolis is a queer-owned, community-focused gift shop in South Minneapolis centered on curiosity, connection, and self-discovery. Explore astrology, tarot, crystals, herbs, mindfulness, and spiritual practices in a welcoming environment for all backgrounds and experience levels. Located at 3304 East Lake Street in Minneapolis, Moonstone Minneapolis also hosts makers markets, classes, and community events. Learn more at moonstoneMPLS.com and discover a welcoming place to explore with curiosity and respect. It's that time of year where the weather is getting nice and it's time to get out of the house for some family fun. Lily Putt is open for the season, and you know what that means. Lily Putt is known for its mini golf, go-karts, glow golf, jump pads, kiddie carts, gem mining, and even a new arcade. Lily Putt also has interactive and engaging escape rooms like the Haunted Mansion, the Bunker, or Night of the Wolf. Lily Putt is perfect for parties and group events. Stop by lilyputt.net for more information and hours of operation. Greg Bakken here. It's nice to get out of the Twin Cities and take some travel excursion to some great locations. Minnesota has so much to offer, which is why I love traveling down to Wabasha and staying at the historic Anderson House Hotel. Opened in 1856, this beautiful hotel offers comfortable accommodations, has a delicious restaurant, and even a speakeasy in the basement to unwind with a drink. Located next to the Mississippi River and on Main Street, there is a lot of sightseeing and shopping to do too. To get more information, go to the AndersonHouseHotel.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, showers and thunderstorms expected with a low of 56. Then Wednesday, rain and storms continue with a high of 70. Summer is here, so have a night to remember with dinner and a show at Crooner's Supper Club. Crooner's is located in Fridley on Highway 65, just north of I-694. Check out their concert schedules and dinner menus at croonersmn.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken.
And this is Ghostbox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakken. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Before we get to our special guest tonight, I just got to share something with you all. As you know, I have this beautiful cat named Puff. And earlier today when I was feeding her, I noticed in her, like outside her food, there was like a small like pile of food or something. And there is some stuff kind of crawling all over inside of it, which was disgusting, to say the least. So I clean it up and find that there was, the word infestation gets thrown around maybe a little too much, but it wasn't quite as bad as that, but it was more than I expected or wanted. I got rid of it, but ever since, of course, and I know they're all gone. I really do. They're all gone. But I now feel like they're crawling all over me. Okay. I mean, it's just, one of those things, those psychosomatic sort of thing where you're just like, oh, I have an itch. Is that one of them? Or I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking and I move and the whatever is like reflecting against, like, say, a knife or something moves with me with me looking at it. And I'm like, is that one of them? It's just, I'm a mess. Okay. Let's just put it that way. It's disgusting. But because I had to live with that, I needed to share that with all of you as well. And I feel bad for Puff. I don't know if she ended up eating a bunch of those as well. They're probably nutritious, right? I mean, they're probably, full of vitamin something. So that's what I had to deal with. But I wanted to share because you needed to know that information as well. You know what else you need to know? That there's a great book out there that I think came out in October of 2025, but I really wanted to talk about it. Written by author Jennifer Shortridge. It's called The Ghosts of the Underground Railroad, and it's one of those type of books that I love because I love history. And the Underground Railroad is something that we should never forget about, and that we should always, remember. And the fact that there is such a lineage of spirit involved with it as well, that I think that this is going to be a fantastic conversation. I invite everyone, if you want to put any questions you have in the comments. Once again, the book is called Ghosts of the Underground Railroad. Our guest tonight is author Jennifer Shortridge. Jennifer, welcome to Ghostbox Radio.
Well, thank you, Greg, so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here and to be with all your listeners tonight.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Well, let's kind of get started here. As history goes on and moves forward, as we move forward in our timelines, sometimes very important things may get, I don't want to say forgotten, but maybe misremembered. Why don't we just start point blank with what the Underground Railroad was?
Sure. And, for some of the younger generation or our international listeners, it wasn't an actual railroad, people. So what it was a secret network of routes and safe houses and churches and fueled by abolitionists who helped enslaved people escape slavery from the South to freedom during around the 1800s at the height of the Civil War time. And there was an estimated 100,000 people who tried to escape through a series of coming from the South all the way up through Ohio, where I live, which is one of the main routes. And that's why I wrote the book, because, I'm deeply rooted in the history of Ohio and the haunted history of Ohio. And it just ties right in with many locations that we have here. And I'll talk about some of those later in Ohio that are haunted by some of the people who, were brave enough to take that journey and try to escape the horrific, life of being an enslaved person or in slavery. And so, when I started really trying to understand what this is they're safe houses. They're, houses with hidden rooms or barns that had secret, trapdoors where people could go as they were journeying up through the United States to be able to rest or hide from people. At that time, there was an act,
But yes, there's an act that came through.
Right. The act that came through was that it was illegal to help anybody who was escaping slavery, and that they could face penalty for housing or helping escape or just anything in general that was tied to helping people get up through the Underground Railroad. It was many times the terminology of a railroad was used. Like, there was code words. The conductors were people who were escorting the people to freedom. There were stations, which were the safe houses. Station masters were people who owned those places that the slaves would come and rest or just refuel. Many of them were sick with disease, exhausted, malnourished. Many, many, many perished along the way. Some were caught, some were unfortunately, tortured, hanged, and they would call them passengers. And sometimes the escape routes would be called tracks. And it's interesting that the route, when they got to the Ohio River, was almost a turning point for them, because once you got to the Ohio River and got into Ohio, it was much easier. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Ohio River. It's a
A little
very,
bit.
wide, fast moving, and dangerous river to cross.
So basically, if you get past the river, not a lot of people are going to want to follow because they don't want to risk their lives, right?
Yeah, and it was dangerous too, because you would have to cross that river either by swimming or a boat, and many times the boats would capsize. They would sink. There would be too many people trying to get on at one time. They were being chased and forced to make decisions quickly and dangerously, as they either went through the forest or through a river or creek, or very unknown territory. Some of it was Native American land, and
Mhm.
some Native Americans were sympathetic to their flight, and some were not. So you're facing that. You're being chased by bandits or the law.
Sure.
And
If you're a slave and you're going through this route, you're trying to escape, and you're being helped by conductors, would you never know the conductors' names, because it's kind of like you don't want to lead anyone back to them or anything like that, or did that not really matter?
Well, yeah, it really did. A lot of the ways that they communicated were in code, encoded in some of the songs that they would sing in the fields that had, hidden messages in them. There would be markings, of a tree. So, they may be singing about the old oak tree past the river, and, we're going to meet, Jesus when we come to the promised land, things along that nature. There were also hidden messages and maps embroidered in quilts.
Wow.
So, they would get to a certain location and then being given this blanket, but the blanket actually had hidden, directions basically for them. They relied heavily on the stars and the moon to guide them and follow the North Star. They would have people who would go ahead of them and be scouts for them. Sometimes sympathizers would light lanterns. If the lantern was on, it was safe to go. If it was off, don't cross the river. Many of them would use whistles or sounds of nature as communication, so that it was okay to maybe go the next 5 miles, or go left instead of right, or follow this path versus a different journey.
It's sad, isn't it? All the
Mhm.
things that they had to do just to be free, just to stay alive. It's incredible, and yet at the same time, it is so. I don't know. It's inspiring to see. Just everything that you just said.
Mhm.
What they did to create, to be able to not only be safe for themselves, but to allow the people who follow them to be safe as well.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was not, and I don't want to make light of it at all. It was not an easy journey. You were separated, from
Yeah.
your family. Sometimes you had to make the decision of, maybe you could only take one child with you, or, you'd have to leave your elderly parents behind, or your husband, your brother, your kids. You had to make that choice. Do I stay with my family, or do I journey to freedom? And maybe I'll make it, and maybe I won't, and maybe I could make it and come back
Yeah.
and try to free them. I know, I just watched the movie about Harriet Tubman,
Yeah.
and some of the things that depicted were so harsh, and she herself brought little more than 300 slaves to freedom. She would go, bring some back and go back for more, and she just kept doing that until It just it was very treacherous for people crossing.
It sounds horrible. And do you have any line of sight what the percentage of successful, how successful they were?
So at the time, there was about 1 million slaves. There were about 100,000 that made the journey. There was probably, and there's no documented record, so this is just my kind of inaccurate, I should say, thought with my research would be probably in the 5,000 or 6,000 range that either got caught and took back, or captured and killed, or died along the way.
It's when you say 1 million slaves, it just it makes me sick. It really does. It just is just horrible. Jennifer, I think we should do this. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and get to our first break right now.
Okay.
And why I want to do that, because when we come back, let's start talking ghosts. Let's start talking about the haunted, stuff that's going on here. Folks, if you have any questions as Jennifer goes on, please make sure you put them in the comments. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Ghostbox Radio on AM 950. Moonstone Minneapolis is a queer-owned, community-focused gift shop in South Minneapolis centered on curiosity, connection, and self-discovery. Explore astrology, tarot, crystals, herbs, mindfulness, and spiritual practices in a welcoming environment for all backgrounds and experience levels. Located at 3304 East Lake Street in Minneapolis, Moonstone Minneapolis also hosts makers markets, classes, and community events. Learn more at moonstoneMPLS.com and discover a welcoming place to explore with curiosity and respect. Greg Bakken here. It's nice to get out of the Twin Cities and take some travel excursion to some great locations. Minnesota has so much to offer, which is why I love traveling down to Wabasha and staying at the historic Anderson House Hotel. Opened in 1856, this beautiful hotel offers comfortable accommodations, has a delicious restaurant, and even a speakeasy in the basement to unwind with a drink. Located next to the Mississippi River and on Main Street, there is a lot of sightseeing and shopping to do too. To get more information, go to theandersonhousehotel.com. Greg Bakken here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. Greg Bakken here. I've been talking for a while about how spooky, fun, and fascinating the Minneapolis trolley tours are, but now there's big news. The Candlelight Ghost Tours now begin at the historic Pillsbury Club, a beautifully restored haunted mansion once owned by Charles Pillsbury himself. Believe it or not, the interior is nearly 200 years older than the exterior. How is that possible? You'll have to come out and find out. Before or after your tour, stop by the on-site market featuring a curated collection of handmade goods, artisan crafts, and locally inspired treasures. Perfect for picking up a keepsake to remember your haunting adventure. You'll also find exclusive spooky merchandise from Tales of the Crypt and Elvira. Then, climb aboard the climate-controlled trolley as we travel through Minneapolis' haunted hotspots, uncovering ghost stories that locals would rather keep buried. The mansion is restored to perfection, and there is no better way to spend an evening. Visit MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for tickets and more information. Looking for something different for family fun, a night out with friends, or your next team-building event? Try the escape rooms at Lilliput. Step into the haunted mansion, race to find a cure in the bunker, or survive Night of the Wolf, all with just 60 minutes to escape. It's private, immersive, and perfect for groups of all kinds. Book your adventure now, spots fill fast. Visit lilliput.net and see if your team has what it takes to escape. And I just want to remind everyone, especially as it's been pretty hot lately, I hope that you've made it down to Mavericks. You might be like, well, talking about real roast beef sandwiches when it's 90 degrees. Are you sure? It's like, well, Mavericks, go in there, it's air conditioned, get a delicious sandwich, but then you just go across the street to the place called Sprinkles that Mavericks also owns, which is all ice cream and malts and really good summery treats. And so go out there, treat yourself to some ice cream, have some fun. It's beautiful area. And well, I love Mavericks and I also love really good ice cream. So go out there, treat yourself to that. I just also want to say the book that we are talking about tonight, Ghosts of the Underground Railroad, written by Jennifer Shortridge. I just want to also say, folks, if you want to get a hold of this book, number one thing we'll always say is please go to a local bookseller, see if they can order it for you, keep them in business. Also, if you'd like, if you feel inclined, you can go to ghostboxradio.com, Ghostbox Book Club. We do have an Amazon affiliated link there. It helps Ghostbox Radio. And those who do buy through there, I do appreciate it. Jennifer has a podcast that you need to check out too, 222 Paranormal Podcast. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So we have been on the air for 11 years now, matching you, Greg. And we talk about all things paranormal, ghosts, haunted locations, aliens, cryptids, Bigfoots, strange and unusual things. It's a weekly show. And it's hosted by my brother and myself. And we love talking about paranormal topics. It's good, clean fun. It's family friendly. We don't get into dark topics, but we might scare somebody. We've had many unusual things happen while we're doing the podcast. I live in a haunted house here. Sometimes we have activity happen during, taping, and people will hear EVPs in our show and point that out to us.
How fun! How can people get your podcast?
It's on all the podcast outlets, and if you want, you can go to our Facebook page, and we post our shows there as well every week.
And so there's a Facebook page, 222 Paranormal Podcast, that people can go and check out. Very nice. Can you share any topics you have coming up, or any topics you have just?
We just did a 2-parter of strange things in the Congo. So unusual creatures, talking about the forest being an entity itself. There, is some reports of like things that people have never seen before, possibly some remnants left over from, dinosaur age. We don't know. But you'll have to tune in to find out.
You got to tune in to find out. Make sure you go to 222 Paranormal Podcast on Facebook. How often you drop once a week? What day of week do you drop new episodes?
We drop new episodes on Sunday at 2:22 in the afternoon.
I love it. I'm so glad I asked that question. That works out very well. Meanwhile, we've had a few comments come in, but you got to put comments. You got to put comments like this up. Jason says, "I love Ghostbox Radio," and
yes,
I'll take it. I'll take it. Honestly, maybe I'll give you my boss's phone number, and you could tell him that too. Right? So we are talking tonight about Ghosts of the Underground Railroad, written by Jennifer Shortridge. Is available all over the place. Well worth the read. Let's talk some ghosts.
So some of the common things that people experience from the South all the way up through into Canada, some of these haunted locations, phantom lanterns. Many people see mysterious lights in the woods or in the Widow's Peaks up in some of these mansions. We do have a place here in Ohio, which I'll talk about a little bit. That is one of the things is they see a lantern just walking, just the lantern, and they'll either see it on the grounds or they'll see it up in the attic, basically. When it was lit, it was okay for the slaves to come to the house. It was clear. People have described witnessing lights in fields, hearing phantom footsteps of people running, chains. In some of these hidden rooms, they will sense and feel the spirits. They've captured EVPs of, people singing softly, voices. Many times if you're using your spirit box, some of the investigators get direct responses to their questions. A lot of times you hear soft whispering voices
Hmm.
when you're at some of these haunted locations. And I focused a little bit on, places here in Ohio because I'm from Ohio. I'm up here in Toledo. I'm right
Sure.
near the Michigan border. And oh, thanks, Jason, for subscribing. I appreciate that. He's in the comments. We have a place called the John Rankin House. Now, John Rankin was a reverend and he was an abolitionist, and he helped over 2,000 people travel to freedom.
Wow.
He would put the lantern up in his attic. It's, and you can go there. It's a museum now, and put the attic or the light lantern up into the attic. When the light was on, it was safe passage. It was visible from Kentucky, so he was close to the Ohio River. And the Rankin House is one of the most famous stops on the Underground Railroad. Reported activity is, they see the apparition of enslaved people there, near what they call Jacob's Ladder, which was basically a steep hillside, and it leads up to the house. And witnesses have seen shadow figures all around their property and inside the house. And some of the visitors claim that they hear footsteps and voices when nobody else is around. And, some of the local folklore is that, during some of the historic dates that things happened, they have more activity. And during thunderstorms, which I'm experiencing right now, it is
Right.
thundering and lightning. I've got goosebumps. My house is haunted. We may see something. I don't know.
I hope so. You keep saying it now. It better happen, or I'm going to be very disappointed. No pressure though.
Right.
I
The
had a
ghost.
question. I have a question though. Because obviously you answered part of it with people saying that like using Spirit Box, they get direct responses, which is great. How much do you think is residual hauntings though? Like with what I think about when you're talking about like the lantern and stuff, I wonder if some of that is residual.
It could very well be. I mean, you could
Yeah.
get intelligent, you could get residual. We have a place here, right, maybe 5 miles from my house, which is a historic barn.
Mhm.
And in that barn, they had the house was attached to it. It's now been moved because it came from a different place. But they had a fake kitchen, and then they had an underground kitchen for the people who would come in, and they could cook for themselves or whatever. They have a lot of sounds of people cooking, but very hushed, and it's the same thing over and over. It's kind of on a loop, like people think residual hauntings are just replaying that moment in time,
Mhm.
or something where maybe they felt safe and they were able to talk amongst themselves, because many times when they were traveling, whether it was in a false bottom of a wagon, or being hidden somewhere, they had to be silent. They couldn't communicate with each other. So
Well,
I think we're getting both.
and don't get me wrong, a residual haunting, I would still love to be a part of. I mean, I was just kind of curious because, also, I think residual hauntings, tend to happen when there is something like some sort of strong influence, like a strong emotion or something, almost like a stone tape theory sort of thing, where it happens because it's so embedded in the structure, and that's great. It's, if as a paranormal investigator, it's still good stuff to be able to experience and be a part of. So it sounds incredible, actually, from a paranormal perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's another place in Ohio, in Ripley, Ohio, and it's called the John P. Parker House. Now, John P. Parker helped many crossed from Kentucky into Ohio. It was close to the other house. So, you had people going at different times. All of the routes, I just wanted to say, changed. They could change in a daily or a weekly or a monthly, because if you just continually go on the same route, they're just going to find you, right? So they would, maybe go to the first house. Next day, you could be rerouted or you could be separated, just depending, if how close the trackers were to you. But now John P. Parker repeatedly helped people cross from Kentucky over the river into Ohio. And it's one of the most important African American historic sites in Ohio. Now, visitors report hearing footsteps, the feeling of being watched, unexplained cold spots, breaths in your ear. Some people say that John P. Parker's spirit is there and he's still on guard. So like if you're approaching the house or something, you may feel a presence come up against you.
Wow.
Maybe he's trying to figure out if you're friend or foe.
Sure.
But,
Sure.
These places you can definitely go and visit. There is a legend in Ripley, Ohio. It's different area from the John Rankin house, but there's a woman who is seen on the hillside carrying a lantern. And some believe that it just represents a woman who helped guided the slaves through that area. Many people have seen her multiple times, different times of the year. So I think she's intelligent because, if it was just residual, would it just be on those, maybe a certain date or time of the year? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. But they see the lantern, it kind of goes up to the front door and then it disappears.
Wow.
Spooky.
Yes, it is, but also awesome in the sense of that it's interesting how paranormal hauntings like that actually help keep us remember this point of history too, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I put so much history into my books. For one, I'm a history buff. I love history. I love the why of why is it haunted? Okay, you can say any place has a ghost or there's a spirit there or Uncle Charlie sitting in the chair he sat in for 50 years. But, what is the history behind this? And why is that particular location so important? Maybe it was the number one stop for, people. Maybe it was a really safe place where they were able to just catch their breath, tend their wounds, stop for, longer than, one night and be able to just regroup or rest, basically respite. There is a place, where people hear a crying child in the hidden room.
Oh.
So this homeowner reported hearing a child crying inside the walls or inside the crawl space. And the cries often stop when somebody starts to investigate it. And the legend kind of says that the spirits belong to a child that was hidden during the planned escape attempt.
When you say that, that was one thing that crossed my mind was what you just said about the baby crying in the hidden room, but also what you talked about with it felt like that you're in places and you're being watched, and it's like how many of these spirits were slaves watching you from their hiding place, which is really an interesting sort of thing and sad actually if they haven't been able to either move along or once again residual or whatever. It's it seems like there's a lot of complexity to these places.
Yeah, some of the antebellum houses too that I looked at, and I have written a book about haunted antebellum houses, seem to have a lot of knocking in repetition.
Okay.
So one thing that's like a common thing is knocking 3 times. So I don't know if that has something to do with, it's safe, or if that's, like, oh, hi, Mark. Mark just came on.
Yep.
Paul. But rhythmic tapping at night, people hear knocks coming from solid walls as well. That's a
Mhm.
thing. There's a shadow man along the Ohio River that in Ripley that during the 1800s, or I'm sorry, he's seen in 1800s period clothing, and he disappears when you approach him. But some claim that they see him on foggy nights, and they say an escaped slave that was directing people. Like he held the lantern and would, tell them to come in, and they see him sometimes on foggy nights.
That's really cool.
And
What
fog
about
is scary. I'm telling you, I've experienced some fog down south. It is not. It
So-
is creepy.
sometime I'll tell you about my fog at Gettysburg, but we're not talking about Gettysburg tonight, but it was something. Have you experienced anything like the lanterns or anything like that?
I not particularly to the Underground Railroad, but I have seen and witnessed lights in forests and in the Hollywood Hills when I lived in Los Angeles.
Oh, that'd be great.
I
Yeah.
saw some very, very scary glowing red eyes and some lights moving through. Was it the homeless? I don't know. It could have been human, which are sometimes scarier than the dead, right?
Yep,
The
absolutely.
living. But phantom lights, there's a place, I want to say 3/4 of the way up in Michigan, where they have like some kind of phantom lights on this particular road. Nothing around here. I mean, I live in one of the most haunted spots in the city. This location's on a ley line. It's a former we had not a railroad, but a trolley car that went through. But I'm also on a Native American trail. Like my house is like direct on it, so I get a lot of like activity from that. Not related, but
sure.
still
No, but
spooky.
still. Yeah, still. It's absolutely. Jennifer, why don't we go ahead, take our next break? When we come back, I want to share some other stuff that I've experienced a little bit regarding that, and then let's talk more about all these wonderful experiences in the book and everything else. If you have questions, put in the comments. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Ghostbox Radio on AM 950. Greg Bakken here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com. Greg Bakken here. I've been talking for a while about how spooky, fun, and fascinating the Minneapolis trolley tours are, but now there's big news. The Candlelight Ghost Tours now begin at the historic Pillsbury Club, a beautifully restored haunted mansion once owned by Charles Pillsbury himself. Believe it or not, the interior is nearly 200 years older than the exterior. How is that possible? You'll have to come out and find out. Before or after your tour, stop by the on-site market featuring a curated collection of handmade goods, artisan crafts, and locally inspired treasures. Perfect for picking up a keepsake to remember your haunting adventure. You'll also find exclusive spooky merchandise from Tales of the Crypt and Elvira. Then, climb aboard the climate-controlled trolley as we travel through Minneapolis' haunted hotspots, uncovering ghost stories that locals would rather keep buried. The mansion is restored to perfection, and there is no better way to spend an evening. Visit MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for tickets and more information. Moonstone Minneapolis is a queer-owned community-focused gift shop in South Minneapolis centered on curiosity, connection, and self-discovery. Explore astrology, tarot, crystals, herbs, mindfulness, and spiritual practices in a welcoming environment for all backgrounds and experience levels. Located at 3304 East Lake Street in Minneapolis, Moonstone Minneapolis also hosts makers markets, classes, and community events. Learn more at moonstoneMPLS.com and discover a welcoming place to explore with curiosity and respect. It's that time of year where the weather is getting nice and it's time to get out of the house for some family fun. Lily Putt is open for the season, and you know what that means. Lily Putt is known for its mini golf, go-karts, glow golf, jump pads, kiddie carts, gem mining, and even a new arcade. Lily Putt also has interactive and engaging escape rooms like the Haunted Mansion, the Bunker, or Night of the Wolf. Lily Putt is perfect for parties and group events. Stop by lilyputt.net for more information and hours of operation. Greg Bakken here. It's nice to get out of the Twin Cities and take some travel excursion to some great locations. Minnesota has so much to offer, which is why I love traveling down to Wabasha and staying at the historic Anderson House Hotel. Opened in 1856, this beautiful hotel offers comfortable accommodations, has a delicious restaurant, and even a speakeasy in the basement to unwind with a drink. Located next to the Mississippi River and on Main Street, there is a lot of sightseeing and shopping to do too. To get more information, go to theandersonhousehotel.com. And join me tomorrow on Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken. We are going to see the return of Matt Schmidt, our favorite quantum healer. He's going to come on tomorrow. We're going to talk about quantum healing and timelines. How do we use timelines for quantum healing? These are great conversations. Definitely join in. Matt has a great way of taking something that's kind of complex and making it sound very understandable, even to people like myself. So I recommend giving it a listen. Those have been great conversations, just like the conversation I'm having on right now with author Jennifer Shortridge. We were talking about her book, Ghosts of the Underground Railroad. And Jennifer, I wanted to share with you a couple things. First, the only real location I think I've ever been to that is like really known for being part of the Underground Railroad was the Hannah House in Indianapolis. But something weird happened maybe like 5 years ago or something. Being a paranormal investigator such as yourself, got called to a location, and I brought the people I was investigating with. We also brought a psychic medium, and we went down into the basement, and the house was, not too terribly old, but it opened up into another part of the basement, which was much older. And then that room actually led to an older room that was bricked up that we couldn't get to. Really? And it was over by a river that would actually get you to the Mississippi River. And our psychic medium that was with us, she kept getting young people in chains. It was really interesting, and there's absolutely nothing that connects that property to the Underground Railroad, but at the same time, it's like, what was that? Because there was a lot of things that was happening in there that we could find that was let's say unique, and these parts of the basement. The house was added on to the basement, if that makes sense. Like they must have demolished the original structure there and then built a house. But that basement, like you literally opened up the wall as a door, but it blended into the wall. It wasn't meant to be like a doorway, and you would open it up. I just wanted to share because it's just a very unique thing. It was very interesting.
What did you sense or feel when you were in there?
Well, myself, funny enough, I don't recall because I was so wrapped up with what our psychic medium was getting, and she was getting despair, she was getting sadness, and she kept seeing, and she would say young people who were chained up, and it made me sad because it's like, first of all, it's very sad if it's the Underground Railroad in the sense that just that they go through that and hopefully they made it, but also it's like, what if it's actually human trafficking of some kind? It just, I don't have an answer, unfortunately. That was very interesting, and I just wanted to share that with you. What one thing that you had mentioned was because I'm a big spirit box person, and I when you said that investigators were getting direct responses from slaves, do you remember any of the stuff that they were saying?
I don't particularly.
Sure.
And you want to hear a sad story about a spirit box? I went investigating one time and left my spirit box at a location.
You left it at a
I did.
location?
You know how you set all your equipment around?
Yeah.
I left my spirit box. So
I did that once to a really nice shack hack, and I literally ripped apart the place to get it back because I was just like, yeah. Let me clarify. Joshua's like, slavery was human trafficking. Yes. But yeah. I'm even thinking something separate to that, like a different time period than that. So, but thanks for the correction, Joshua. I really appreciate it as always.
To answer Mark's question here, it was the Lathrop House in Sylvania. And you can investigate it. So, Mark, you might be on that.
Yeah. And what does that go back to again? For remind me what that's in reference to.
Okay, so the Lathrop House was a stop on the Underground Railroad. They had a false kitchen.
Okay.
And the secondary kitchen was in the basement, and that's where the people who came through were able to stop and cook and make food to take with them onto the journey. And they seem to have a lot of activity in that second, underground basement.
No, that's incredible. That's I mean, that sounds absolutely incredible. So what about is there been a place that is part of the Underground Railroad that you've heard is haunted that you would like to get into? Like, is like this house one of them, or is there something else on your list that you would like to be able to visit?
Well, yeah, the Lathrop House, that's probably the most famous one here in Toledo, but there's many just regular houses here that were stops along the way. And I know there's like a kind of a local legend that there were some underground tunnels out by one of the cemeteries that connected some houses out in that area. Could be urban legend. Some people say that's true, maybe Mark, and if you have heard anything of it, he wants to know how he can get in. So Mark's saying, the Lathrop House is like 5 miles from the border here. And, Lake Erie was, a major part of it too. So if you're familiar with the area, Lake Erie is on, borders Ohio and Michigan and Canada. Many of the slaves did not make it when they were crossing Lake Erie. Lake Erie can be very volatile. It's one of the it is the shallowest of the Great Lakes, but there's just very, very strange things like random pop-up storms. You can get just a gust of wind come through and cause lakes. Rogue waves.
Sure.
When I was doing research for the book, and you guys have to, read through it, Lake Erie had many reports of people seeing shadow figures, apparitions on the shore, almost like looking out, looking for their loved ones. There was a lady, they called her the ghost of Eliza, and she is in period clothes. She stands on the banks, very often seen during foggy periods. That's why I was mentioning fog earlier. Like it kind of highlights and shadows, makes those figures stand out a little bit more. We always have some kind of weird weather tied to the Great Lakes here. Many, ghost ships have gone down or are spotted. Shipwrecks are just, common with the Great Lakes, but many enslaved people lost their lives crossing Lake Erie, trying to get into Canada, which it's sometimes 45 miles to 90 miles. Some places it's from Detroit to Canada, less than a mile. So I guess it just depended on what route you took and where you tried to, go and get across. It could have been, 15 minutes to get across the Detroit River into Canada, but it could have took you, a day or two to get across if you left from Cleveland or Toledo trying to
Sure.
reach. Yeah.
Well, and Mark says he also Detroit was a major destination if he says
Yep.
if he recalls correctly.
Yeah, so 30 to 60,000 people were estimated to land in Canada and be able to settle and become, free citizens there during that time period.
And it's interesting talking about, it's kind of weird how these things overlap a little bit. You're talking about the Great Lakes and the energy, which to me it's a whole different thing, right? In a sense, and than the paranormal stuff we're talking about with the Underground Railroad. And what I mean by that is, I'm a firm believer in those areas of the Great Lakes. Who knows what kind of energy is being brought into those areas, whether it's alien or anything else, right?
Yeah. So I've written a book called The Lake Erie Triangle. And
of course you have.
Of course I have. It's behind me somewhere. There are strange and unusual things that happen in and around the Great Lakes. Ghost ships, strange cryptids, aliens. They have numerous, UFO and sub-UFO activity. Now we call them UAPs.
I don't.
I will still call them UFOs. I'm
old
school.
I'm
old and I'm old school, so I will call them UFOs. Bigfoot sightings, portals. The whole Great Lakes is built on a salt mine that runs from Detroit all the way to Cleveland, limestone, which is highly conductive. There's quartz, the water, which is very conductive. And tied to many, many tragedies and deaths. So, you have a lot of spirits seen, strange things, unexplained things, phantom lights, time slips happen, strange, people flying over, lose, minutes, hours. There's, Lake Erie, or I'm sorry, off the coast of Lake Erie, I think it was 1967, there was a famous UFO landing. And where it landed, it left like ringlets in the sand, but it like melted the sand into glass because of the intense heat. We got Sticks Boy 73 says he lives on Great Lakes, Ontario, which is a crazy lake as well.
Look at you running ahead of me on the comments. My gosh, can't even keep up.
Popping in.
Chuck actually is an alien. So that's kind of his thing. Well, and it's interesting too to think the fact that that there is like slaves trying to escape. They're walking in that area. They're traveling in that area, and for all they know, they're trapped. They're jumping between the 1860s and the 21st century, and they have no idea.
Yeah, can you imagine, trying to communicate with the spirit that just doesn't understand electricity or equipment, electronics? Like I always try to take it really basic. Oh, thanks, Jason. Appreciate that. When I am communicating with spirits, I try to think of like, okay, in their time, they see this light. I'm like, it's not fire. It's not going to burn you. It's just, something. This is a tool that we have now. I always explain the year, that times are different, that people are free. We have these rights and freedoms. Women have these rights and freedoms to be able to do things. So, I always try to be really respectful with the spirits. I try to put myself into their shoes a little bit and communicate how I think that they would be receptive to it. I mean, first of all, you have somebody who's, if they're stuck in that residual loop, maybe still in fear, in, their adrenaline's going, that could definitely imprint wherever they were. Uh, you have sadness and fear and maybe anger, somebody coming after them. But also hope and joy, because, there were people that helped these people along the ways. There's churches, small churches, and some of these locations are, just gone because of time and progress. But we really have to preserve what we do have left. But, the churches, people still hear, singing and voices in the churches. And that was a joyous thing. If they made it to the church, they were able to, rejoice.
We have about a minute and a half left.
Okay.
Chuck asked the question, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Do you think they are aware of the surroundings, or do some not realize the time frame?
I think it could be both. I think, maybe if there was a tragic death, they're just stuck there and they just don't understand it. But, maybe there are spirits that made it onto freedom and they just came back and wanted to, maybe try to connect with those other spirits and let them know it's okay to not stay where they're at and move on to the next, whatever you guys believe. I'm open, I don't judge anybody's beliefs, but, I always think that there is some place higher that we go, and it's a piece of, loving, peaceful place without the strife you felt in your, your human life.
And I agree completely that it can be anything, right? That's the thing about paranormal, is that we are able to, all theories are welcome, and all theories could very well be correct, right? The best part about it in some ways.
That's this community that we're in is very open and accepting, and I found over the 25 plus years that I've been going to conventions or ghost hunting, that we have this really tight-knit community that's open to hearing other people's thoughts and ideas.
I love it. We got to get going. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Let's have you back sometime. Okay?
Thank you, Greg. Thank you.
All right. We'll be back tomorrow with Matt Schmidt, Quantum Healing. Everyone, have a great night.
All right. Bye now.